Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 24. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday show, Steelers Nation. Dave, it's week 2, getting into the second week of the NFL regular season. Pittsburgh getting ready to hit the road and hit the skies to go to Denver for Sunday's 4:25 matchup against the Broncos. We'll see if it's a Russell Wilson homecoming revenge game, but not looking likely right now. Justin Fields probably going to be your starter, but a lot to talk about today. Dave, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Happy Friday to you and to all the listeners. We've got a great, at least we're planning on a great show. Got a great guest that we recorded a bit with that will fit in during the middle of the show. But as usual, we got a lot to talk about at the top here.
Of course. And yeah, a little bit later, we'll have on Chris Thomasson, who covers the Broncos for the Denver Gazette, and get his insight on Denver coming off their week 1 loss to the Seattle Seahawks, and talk some Bo Nix, talk that defense and what to expect from the Broncos on Sunday. All right, Dave, let's start off here with the injury situation for this team. No transactions, no big other news since we last spoke on Wednesday. Getting the Friday report here later after recording this, obviously, as we always is the case on our Friday show. But not practicing on Thursday for Pittsburgh linebacker Patrick Queen with a groin. Cam Hayward was given the day off, some rest, and Isaac Seumalo remains out with the pec injury. Limited included Russell Wilson with the calf. He's been limited all week. Darius Rush also limited as he makes his way through concussion protocol. Working in full on Thursday included Dan Moore Jr. with the ankle. He missed Wednesday, came back full for Thursday. Roman Wilson, welcome back to full participation. His first such practice since injuring his ankle on the first padded practice of training camp. He'd been limited last week, limited Wednesday, but full on Thursday. And good news on Larry Ogunjobi, who popped up on Wednesday's report with a knee. He was limited on Wednesday. He was full on Thursday. So good news for Roman Wilson. Not going to guarantee he plays. Still a lot of time missed. Obviously, Russell Wilson being limited with a calf injury gives you the thought that Fields will end up being the starter. We'll check on Queen, hopefully just minor there. And we'll have a lot to talk about with the offensive tackle situation as well, Dave.
Yeah, I think the two big names, obviously, to watch, Patrick Queen. It's hard to speculate on what's going on. He could return and go full. I mean, what wasn't it last week that Darnell with the knee, and then he ended up practicing and not even getting a status report and all. So hard to speculate on Queen. Obviously, hope it's not anything serious, but he did finish out the game. So probably got a little tweak going on. Hopefully he can overcome that. The other name to watch, I would think, would be Darius Rush as he works his way through the rest of the concussion protocol there. Yeah, you look at the whole Russell Wilson thing, and nobody's probably going to be surprised how this is ultimately probably going to play out here. And to hear Russell Wilson talk to the media on Thursday, it doesn't, they're trying to be careful with this. They're trying not to rush, yada, yada. At this point, obviously, not a lot of people are expecting him to play. He will probably suit up again as the number 3 quarterback, but even it's still ways out here, and you don't want to look too far ahead. Starting to wonder if he'll even be ready by the time that they play the Chargers at home in week 3 here. But we're focusing on week 2 as it is right now. I think the full expectations are for Justin Fields to make his second start, to be backed up by Kyle Allen. Russell Wilson in uniform as the inactive 3 emergency quarterback. And then once again, we'll see how Friday plays out for Patrick Queen and Darius Rush. And as far as inactives go, I would expect Russell Wilson to be the emergency 3rd. Obviously, Isaac Seumalo probably not going to play in this one, so he'll be down. Based on the way things went last week, Dean Lowry probably going to be inactive again, so that makes 3 inactives. Obviously, the Queen and the Rush stuff will sort its way out. If those guys can dress and play, they'll dress and play.
Does Roman Wilson get a hat, or do you think it's still going to be some time on him, even if healthy?
It feels like it's a little early still on that. Here's the big question, I think, is when you get to Saturday, are there going to be any elevations? Will Ben Skoranek be elevated? Because obviously you got Terrell Edmonds on the roster now, and you had the Jalen Elliott was inactive. I mean, at a minimum, obviously you're going to have 5 inactives for this game. And with a complete 53-man roster right now, unless there's any more kind of crazy shuffling that ended up with a 52-man roster last week, if you elevate any guys, you're going to have a matching inactive player for those. So there is a little bit of intrigue, I think, going into Saturday. And as you pointed out, boy, Skoranek, when he got on the as a gunner on the Chris Boswell punt, he represented himself well, threw his man down to the ground, along with Scotty Miller on the other side over there. So there is a little bit of intrigue here when we talk about injuries and possible inactives, but all that stuff should come out in the wash by the time this team gets on the plane headed to Denver on Saturday.
It's interesting. We're a week out from Russell Wilson's injury, and the quarterback situation feels more certain this weekend than it was against Atlanta last weekend. Maybe that's because it happened so late in the week, but it was this, okay, what's Wilson's status? Will he play? Won't he play right up to kickoff? This weekend kind of feels like, yeah, it's going to be Fields. And I'm just reading our Discord chat on the fly, but I believe Jerry Dulac is referencing today in a chat that the Steelers plan to start Fields this week and next week against the Chargers, which you kind of just referenced there. So maybe Wilson does not come back for week 3. Maybe it's going to be a week 4 game against Indy. So we'll have to wait and see. As you said, that's all next week's business. But this one kind of feels like we're all just sitting here holding hands saying, yeah, Fields is going to be the guy for at the least this weekend.
Yeah, and look, here's the positive here. Talked about it earlier in the week. Fields getting all the first team reps, should be even better prepared this week than he was last week. And you're interested to see what the byproduct of that is. They've had a full week, obviously, to build on the things that he does well and maybe not so well as far as play calling and schematics go. So it's to me, obviously, it's a positive to have more definition. At least we think they have more definition on who their starting quarterback will be heading into the weekend.
Right, exactly. And good point. The wire to wire starting reps for Fields and kind of knowing that he's going to be the starter as opposed to everything happening kind of 72 hours out last week. Changes things, I think, significantly for the better for Justin Fields. Want to talk about the offensive tackle situation, but just quickly, let's go through Denver's injury report. Does not seem to be too notable. They got a couple of linemen who've been beat up with Garrett Bowles and Luke Wattenberg, starting left tackle and starting center, respectively. But sounds like both of those guys will go. Josh Reynolds was limited on Thursday with an Achilles, but I think he's going to play as well. Might be down one wide receiver, a rookie. Chris will talk about that here in a couple minutes, but overall, no, hugely notable absences we expect for this Broncos game on Denver's side.
Yeah, you do wonder about that ankle with Wattenberg, though, because they need some good interior runs. That's probably what they're going to try to lean on here. And, Keanu Benton didn't have the best game in week 1, and I bet he's getting needled a little bit by Mike Tomlin saying, all right, let's see it this week. So, but yeah, Bowles evidently looks like he's going to play at left tackle there, and Wattenberg should suit up. Will be interesting to see how the wide receiver room shakes out for them overall, though.
All right, let's talk about Pittsburgh's offensive line. And with Dan Moore seemingly on track to play in this game with his full practice on Thursday, you got 3 tackles for 2 spots. You got Dan Moore Jr., Troy Fautanu, and Broderick Jones. And we can't say for sure how things will go, but according to Ray Fittipaldo, and basically what the beat guys seem to be teasing is that Troy Fautanu is going to start this weekend. And that would, of course, happen at right tackle. And assuming Dan Moore is healthy and starting, that leaves Broderick Jones as the odd man out. Ray Fittipaldo predicting, not reporting, but predicting that it will be Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle and Troy Fautanu at right tackle against Denver. So Fautanu was the backup last week. Was still kind of working his way back and getting reps from that knee injury he suffered against the Texans in the preseason opener. But it seems very plausible that Broderick Jones will be benched for this game.
They can't say, but they're saying. Unless somebody comes right out and tells them, one of those tackles, who's starting, they can't report what they saw. But I think it was, as Thursday rolled on, it became very apparent the message that was being kind of sent out over Twitter/X as a whole, and that is that everybody should expect Troy Fautanu to start at right tackle, and barring any kind of setback for Dan Moore Jr., who practiced full with that ankle on Thursday, he'll be at left tackle there. And Broderick Jones has been beat up, but he hasn't been on the injury report, has he?
Right.
Even so, yeah, he's probably not healthy, but quite a shot across the bow here, right? It feels like this is a message being sent to Broderick Jones that you've got to be better here. And I would imagine that's how this thing's going to be portrayed. And I obviously expect Broderick Jones to suit up, but it doesn't sound like he's going to be the starter.
Is it? I think it's a mixture of both. Obviously, if Jones was playing elite football, then they wouldn't bench him. But they also just seem to be really high on Troy Fautanu. From the moment they drafted him, they were so excited that he fell to them, a projected top 10 pick who went all the way down to number 20 to Pittsburgh, and he was getting first team right tackle work right before he got hurt in training camp during the summer. And so they just seem really, really high on Fautanu. So I think that's maybe as much a factor as it is Jones not having the summer that he would like to have too.
Yeah, but you got a guy that's got more experience and a former first round draft pick as well too. So you can't help but look at this to some degree as a negative on Broderick Jones. And yes, I know he was primarily a left tackle during his time in college and all, but he did play a large complement of snaps at right tackle, starting about the sixth, seventh game last season there. So I don't know how this can't be perceived as a little bit of negative when it comes to Broderick Jones. Now, look, Dan Moore has done nothing to get himself benched yet, but the fact that you've got a rookie coming in and taking your job, technically it's hard to spin that as a positive.
Sure. No,
other than Fautanu, just they really like him.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a negative when your first round tackle who you traded up for, in April of 2023 is likely headed to the bench. There's no other spin you can put on that otherwise. But I just think at least one part of the decision is about their excitement for Fautanu, and that may be one of several reasons of why they're apparently making this move. But you're right. The question is, okay, what happens from here? I mean, if Fautanu is your starting right tackle and Moore your left tackle, and those guys stay healthy, are they going to keep playing musical chairs? They're going to potentially bench Dan Moore midseason. That seems less likely unless it goes really bad. They still like Dan Moore. Just Jones just sit on the bench as he works 6 offensive linemen. I mean, what is his future? It's not often that a first round tackle gets benched and his career ends up being what he and the team would hope his career would be for a first round pick.
Yeah, this is going to be on a game by game basis. Look, once you get Fautanu in there at right tackle on Sunday, barring his wheels coming off, that's where he's going to be, right? So, or barring, I mean, there's no way around that. I mean, it's going to be hard to put him in this week, and then at least you hope not turn around and play musical chairs at right tackle with Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. In other words, what I'm getting at is the Fautanu era is about to start, and where it goes from there is probably more dependent on Dan Moore and how he plays moving forward as to when Broderick Jones, gets back starting again. Now, I think you can do at least some creative stuff this week in Denver, especially if you're going to run, and they will more multiple tight end type situations. You could probably get Broderick Jones on the field as a quasi tight end, right? I'm expecting that, at least. I think.
Okay.
I am expecting for us on Monday to be talking about 2 to 5 snaps with Broderick Jones as eligible.
I can see it. We haven't seen it yet. I think there was some chatter about that in the spring, but it would make sense to use that as kind of an extra tight end. You can put out Darnell Washington and Broderick Jones as your inline tight ends. I mean, that can be a really physical side to run on with Fautanu over there as well. So you could have some fun with that for sure. So it would make sense. Would be maybe a little situational, obviously, and game circumstance dependent. So that is one way, but still, even if Broderick Jones is playing 3 snaps a game as a 6 offensive lineman, was not the vision, of course, when they drafted him. And as Omar Khan continues to say, he's our left tackle of the future. But he's not even a starting tackle of the present. Those things don't really mesh.
And it's not going to happen in week 2.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
At least we don't think. I mean, once again, the beat writers can't say, but they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the reporting, the Trib did say that Jones and Fautanu split first team right tackle reps. They had a quote from Fautanu that he's very excited for this weekend, and I doubt he'd be very excited to continue to be the backup this weekend. So that is the tea leaves of this thing.
Is there any chance they rotate those 2 guys in?
I mean, that seems like the worst decision you could make of all the decisions that you could make. So I would doubt that, but I guess you can't completely discount it, but I'd be surprised and would not advocate for that.
I would not advocate it. Hopefully we're not talking about that.
Yeah, but we could probably talking about Broderick Jones being benched, and that is again not what Pittsburgh envisioned. Now, I think their long-term outlook is still that Dan Moore's going to leave after this season. He'll sign somewhere else in free agency, and then Jones will go back over to left tackle for next year. But you bench your getting around that, as you said. You're benching your first round pick at right tackle 1 game in, and that's not a great sign for his future.
Right. I mean, it can't be framed any way other than that. Your first round tackle in 2023 is getting benched this week. That's it.
I mean, how did you think he played against Atlanta? He was okay. I didn't see him playing so terribly that in a vacuum that warranted him being benched. It wasn't, Buffalo preseason bad.
No, it wasn't that bad. Obviously, look, he's not going to go, not going to garner any All-Pro, Pro Bowl vote awards, and probably played a little bit of part in a couple of those sacks there. But it wasn't awful. No.
So, I mean, was it bad enough to warrant him being replaced? Did you get that sense of we got to get this guy out of the lineup?
Look, we don't know technically assignments. I mean,
sure.
What it matched up as far as assignments go on each and every play call there. But I thought as a whole, it didn't look like there were any gaps. Now there was that kind of that mix on that on that twist on one of them, right? With him and was it Daniels? I think on one of those. So look, there's something there that's obviously. They like the upside and they like the prospects. They think Fautanu is the better equipped player right now to play right tackle over Broderick Jones, and that's it. That's the narrative.
Right. That's why I do think one element of this is they're just really high on Fautanu, want to get him in the lineup because, it wasn't like Jones played so terribly that they feel compelled to make a change. He's just healthy and they want to see him in the lineup. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, they've seen more than I have since camp, but I mean, he did not have a good showing against Houston in that limited, first start, giving up 1, maybe even arguably 2 sacks. So hopefully he's improved by then. So, we'll have to wait and see, but that'll be one of the big storylines of this game.
Sure, certainly is heading into this one.
All right, let's talk. Where do you want to go from here, Dave? Coordinator, corner Arthur Smith and Terrell Austin speaking yesterday. Arthur Smith had a really interesting commentary and about as candid as we've heard Smith so far, talking about that failed 3rd and 2 late in the game, that RPO to Van Jefferson on the right side, where it seemed that George Pickens and Calvin Austin had 2 really bad blocks that allowed Jefferson to be tackled short of the sticks for a 1-yard gain, set up a 4th and 1. Pittsburgh failed to convert on a quarterback sneak. And Smith, it took me a couple reads to kind of understand what he was saying. But do you want to walk through what Smith's point and critique seems to be of that play?
Yeah, the original quote that came out on Twitter made it sound like he that's a throw that he didn't want, a bad read. In other words, that the ball shouldn't have gone out there. And I immediately jumped right back into all 22 and said, man, what am I missing here? Because we talked about that play already a couple of times already since the game. You get the situation where you have 3-on-2 out there, especially you need 1 yard. That's give me that all day long and throw that all day long. Obviously, as the next hour and a half roll on, we finally get the transcript and all like that. The takeaway and people and reporters use the correct verbiage, I guess. It seems like they wanted that ball out quicker to Justin Fields before he got out more towards the numbers, so that would give him the ability to cut in instead of going outside. The fact of the matter, though, in my opinion, I'm sure you agree with this, if you block this up better on the outside with George Pickens and Calvin Austin, it shouldn't matter where that ball goes. But I think the general takeaway that Arthur Smith was trying to say is the whole mechanism there, the timing of the whole play wasn't good enough, and that the balls just got to get out quicker to Jefferson so that he has the ability to go inside, so that, I guess, as Arthur Smith says, the blocks don't matter.
Yeah, I guess the point is that all Pickens and Austin are making sure they don't allow immediate inside penetration by those DBs out there, that the ball is not supposed to go to their outside hip. So they're not really blocking in a way that would, prevent the DB from working to the outside. And the ball came out pretty quick. So I'm guessing that because Fields, kind of faked the handoff to Warren first and then threw to Jefferson. I'm guessing that Fields should have never even implemented the fake and just thrown it immediately to Jefferson because they had the right look, they had numbers, and it was a clear opportunity to pass that to Jefferson and pick up the first down. So yeah, I mean, because that bubble is going out towards the sideline, and you want that quicker, I guess, before Pickens or before Jefferson got the Pickens and kind of be on his inside hip. Jefferson would be a Pickens to be able to turn up field and pick up the first down and probably even score if he's able to get past that first wave of blocker. So that's the first time I've kind of heard Smith be that honest in terms of a mistake, and it was refreshing to hear.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with being upfront like that. And look, if you block it up, it don't matter. you get the one. The fact that you don't get 1 yard is concerning overall when it comes to that play. But at least it feels like our analysis is right in the fact that you got the right look, and that where the ball went was the right decision. Mm-hmm. It just didn't get there quick enough. Right, I was kind of questioning myself there. What did I miss when the initial quote hit? But I think we have it diagnosed right.
Yeah, we do. And Arthur Smith also making it very clear about why this team did not throw to the middle of the field, and why seemingly and really essentially every pass that Fields threw was towards the sideline, towards the numbers, was they were playing keep away from Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons, and Bates in particular, who Smith was coaching last year and had Atlanta's 8 interceptions in 2023, a ball hawk, and Pittsburgh knows him from his Cincinnati days. And so they said we were staying far away from Jesse Bates, and the only time we tested him was late in the first half when Fields rolled out to his left and threw back to the right and caught Pickens for a 33-yard completion. And Bates texted apparently Smith after the game and said, "You got me." And Smith said, "We lulled you to sleep and hit you on the big play there." So that is the reason why Pittsburgh was not targeting the middle of the field, and they made that very clear yesterday.
And didn't we say that right out of the chute that was, people don't like to hear it because of 4 years of not using the middle of the field. But I think when you look at the game plan and the tape and how things transpired and the situation with Fields and all like that, it felt like that was the reason why they were doing that. It made a lot of sense. So we got some validation there. Alex, refresh my memory. How many times have we talked about quotes from opposing from players on opposing teams talking about the Steelers offensive coordinator in, you got me.
Not often, not often recently. This has been a fun week to hear that kind of stuff.
Refreshing, is it not? But here's the thing. People are going to say, "Oh, that's just an excuse." Fields' history does not dictate him throwing to the middle of the field, and the overarching that other narrative until it's proving otherwise is, look, this is just the way Mike Tomlin wants his offense run. He doesn't want to put quarterbacks in situations where attacking the middle of the field might result in a turnover. This is at the top, all rubber stamped by Mike Tomlin to avoid the middle of the field as much as necessary. So until the Steelers start doing that, that will continue to be the narrative. However, I'm going to caution people right now, don't expect 6, 7, 8, 9 passes from Fields towards the middle of the field, past 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Just the way kind of the Denver defense stacks up here. But it was apparent to both of us that the reason why they avoided the middle of the field, and look, it wasn't just avoiding it, man. You could drive two 18-wheelers side by side down that middle of that passing chart there. But it passes the smell test.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why teams will avoid certain areas of the field, and that may even, as you said, be the case against Denver. And some of that's defensive structure. You have a team that's playing a lot of single high, a lot of cover 3, cover 1, and that middle of the field is closed. There's a free safety between the hashes. It's harder to throw down the middle. You're risking, more big hits, more takeaways, a lot of danger down there. If you're seeing more split high and too high looks, the middle of the field becomes more open, and you can throw the ball downfield. But if they have a great safety, just in the way that Kirk Cousins didn't throw downfield, towards Minka last week, because you don't want to throw near number 39. Pittsburgh had the same approach with Bates. So, my whole mantra for week 1 was do whatever it takes to win week 1, difficult circumstances. And, that's not sustainable. That model can't be copy and pasted in terms of the inefficiency and not scoring touchdowns, not finishing drives, etc. But it was good enough to win week 1. So you do want to see it evolve and see more of it here in week 2, especially when Fields is the guy, the starting reps and the QB1 from, basically when the game plan gets put in for Tuesday and Wednesday on the kickoff. So you want to see some evolution of this offense, but understand that sometimes, teams will stay away from certain areas for a variety of very valid reasons.
All right. What did you think about the long explanation on the failed 4th and short sneak?
Yeah, essentially they were trying to go, Pittsburgh was hurry up to run a kind of a quick sneak, was my understanding of what Smith had to say. And they just kind of didn't really line it up right and just didn't really execute it well. Was that essentially what Smith was saying? Was just, again, trying to follow some of these answers was a little more difficult than I thought it would be.
Yeah, then a little bit more word salad there. And he even said Landman did his best Troy Polamalu, which he did, leaping up. Just the whole timing of that thing was off. They didn't seem set, and just one you want back,
Yeah, but again, I'm okay with the call. And they had a couple of successful sneaks they got to execute there, obviously, but I was okay with the call and the decision to go for it to try to put that game away.
All right, anything else? He talked about Najee and something along the lines of did his best Derrick Henry impersonation, which nobody's going to get an argument out of me. I thought Najee ran real hard in that game, real physical. Thought he did some good things out on the edge there as well too, getting the edge, showing a little bit of a burst out there. So well due praise when it comes to Najee there. Anything else from Arthur Smith stick out?
Yeah, I think that was specifically about the finish he had on AJ Terrell on the sideline, where he just lowered his shoulder into Terrell and knocked him down and jawed at him afterwards. I did appreciate, and this is basically why Pittsburgh brought this guy in, when Arthur Smith was talking about their ball control, running the football, and winning the fourth quarter, and it wasn't beautiful, but it worked. He said, quote, "As a coach, maybe I'm sick in the head, but that was beautiful to me." And so that is why Smith was brought in. The ideals, the values about being physical, ball control, establishing the run. It is old school and really counter culture to the modern day NFL that is so wide open and pass game based. But that is what Pittsburgh has been building. That's what they wanted and what Smith is offering.
Yeah, look, and we're going to see more of that. Them strap it up, buckle the chin straps, and multiple tight ends. None of that obviously was surprising in week one. What we saw, I did like the usage, as I mentioned, of the 14 personnel. We're going to see a lot more of that this week against this Denver defense. A lot of heavy personnel and just try to wear them down up front.
Let's talk about Terrell Austin speaking for the defensive side, and he praised Peyton Wilson's debut, saying, quote, "I thought Peyton did a heck of a job," and has praised him basically since day one that Wilson got here for his work ethic, his football IQ, his maturity, and then ultimately his play on Sunday against Atlanta.
Yeah, look, the fact that it's going to depend on packages that you use, but to get a rookie like that out on the field for more than 20 snaps in his first NFL game, that speaks volumes of their trust level in him, especially when you got a healthy complement of inside linebacker, something this team struggled with obviously last year. I thought he represented himself well, and as we highlighted, I think in one of the posts, had a touchdown saving tackle on that first drive. So, and I believe both of us agreed that he's one of the of the draft picks this year. You can't help but be really, really excited about his ceiling.
For sure. It was a good week one, and we'll see how it rolls into week number two. Austin speaking about Terrell Edmunds and his value now that he is reunited with Pittsburgh. And the mantra seems to be depth. That's what I think Mike Tomlin was alluding to, and what Austin specifically said maybe some 3 safety stuff if we need him. I don't know if that's maybe a package or if there's an injury, but essentially the consensus is that Edmunds was brought in not because he was needed right now, but because of depth, and maybe he'll be needed in the future should there be an injury somewhere.
You would expect him to dress this week, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I don't know if he'll have a role defensively. I mean, he played 6 snaps in his game with Jacksonville last week. You think he'll play 6 snaps at least in Pittsburgh defensively this week?
Doesn't feel like it. Don't feel like they need him to.
No, it doesn't. I think it really is just, if they lose, especially if they were to lose Elliott. And then because you've lost him, what is your strong safety answer with Elliott down, hypothetically? Killebrew, then you're kind of in this KZ and Minka, and then Minka's in the box more, and you don't want that to happen. So I think that's really why Edmunds was brought in. But yeah, there's probably some usefulness on special teams. And if there ever was an in-game injury, then also you would have Edmunds step right in.
Right. And obviously you got familiarity in the defense, which 5 years in Pittsburgh before he left, and probably not a lot of stuff has changed that he has to catch up on.
Yeah, it should be the same system. It's the same DC, same head coach, same free safety. There's been some changes in the secondary, obviously. Was he here with Grady Brown for a year? He had to have been. He was with Grady Brown. Grady's been around for a couple of years, so it's a lot of the same, I'm sure, for Terrell Edmunds. Anything else from Terrell Austin, Dave?
No, it was kind of vanilla overall there.
All right, that should cover the coordinators. Dave, let's take a pause here, and we'll come back with Chris Thomasson. Does a great job covering the Broncos for the Denver Gazette. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Thomasson. That's TOMMASON. Let's take a break and come back with Chris.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is week 2 of the NFL season, and the Pittsburgh Steelers will travel out to Denver this week and play the Denver Broncos, who are 0-1 coming off of a week 1 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. So we are pleased to be joined. You heard him a couple of months ago on the Terrible Podcast. Pleased to have him back on again. We're talking about veteran beat reporter Chris Thomasson. Chris covers the Denver Broncos for the Denver Gazette. You can follow Chris on Twitter. You should already be doing that at Chris Thomasson. That's TOMASSON. And make sure you're reading his work at the Denver Gazette ahead of the Sunday game. Chris, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex. Happy Friday.
Hey, great to be on again with you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, pleased to be with you once again. Chris, obviously a disappointing week for the Broncos, losing to the Seattle Seahawks first game for rookie quarterback Bo Nix. Interesting matchup. They get the Steelers at home here in week 2. It's easy to tear through the tape with Bo Nix and pick out a lot of the negatives, especially when you're talking about a rookie quarterback making his first official NFL start. I kind of wanted to start though with what were most of the positives that you took away from the Bo Nix performance in that game?
Well, he seemed to have, good composure. He was going against a raucous crowd, the 12s in Seattle, as you know, and he closed the game with a nice drive in which he scored on a 4-yard touchdown run. So the hope is that momentum can kind of carry over. But, there were a lot of rookie pains, no doubt. But Sean Payton has come out, the head coach, in steadfast support of his rookie quarterback, saying simply, we've got to get better around him. There was some drop passes. The running attack wasn't very good and that sort of thing. So, it definitely was not a good debut, but there certainly were some things Bo Nix did that he and the Broncos can build on.
Did it seem like the speed of the game that Nix got a kind of a welcome to the NFL moment or game, or really first half, I think, as far as the kind of the speed of the game goes? It seemed like he may have settled in a little bit better. I thought his best throw of the game was down the left side on that back shoulder to Reynolds down the field there, kind of a 9-8-9 Coryell concept there on a 3rd and long, which they converted there overall. But did it seem like it took him a little while to get acclimated to real NFL speed against real starters?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, that Reynolds throw was a good one. He also late in the first half had a down the field, middle of the field throw to Cortland Sutton that led to a field goal too. But generally, his throws downfield were not effective, and he didn't throw downfield that much. I mean, Seattle was putting a lot of pressure and stuff on him, and usually he was just throwing little digs or so. I mean, he threw it 42 times, but it was only 138 yards. So, yeah, but he, got a little bit more comfortable as the game went on. And, I mentioned the last touchdown drive. He had a nifty 23-yard run on that one. So it's going to be interesting. He touched upon it on Wednesday to see if he uses his legs more. Maybe not necessarily designed runs, but maybe taking off a little bit earlier so from the pocket when there's pressure.
Chris, I know the big concern this week for Denver is protecting Bo Nix against that fierce Steelers pass rush. What's the health of the O-line? Garrett Bowles limited on Thursday. We're recording this before Friday's final injury report. What's his status? And some other injuries up front. How's that front 5 looking?
He said, Garrett Bowles, that he's going to be ready to roll. He didn't practice on Wednesday, was limited Thursday, but Sean Payton was saying throughout the week that it was just a bruise and he didn't think it was serious, but we'll of course have to see. I mean, he plays the pivotal left tackle position, so it's a calf injury. So if he has trouble pushing off on that leg or something like that, that won't be ideal. But generally, everybody else on the offensive line is healthy, but it wasn't all that great of a performance. I mean, not only were there some protection issues with Bo Nix, the team simply didn't run the ball well, and the strength of Payton, what he wants to do to take pressure off Bo Nix is to run the ball, but they didn't do that well at all. I think running backs, take out the yards that Nix got, I think running backs had 20 carries for 64 yards.
Speaking of the position, how's this committee approach working with Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin? I know that Williams coming off the injury, he had more snaps than McLaughlin. McLaughlin had more carries. What is kind of the ebb and flow of that room, at least one weekend?
Well, to be honest, everybody's waiting to see if Javonte Williams really will return to his 2001 form 2021 form, when he gained 903 yards as a rookie, had a serious knee injury in October of 2022, torn ACL, came back last year, had some flashes, but by the end of the season, he was worn down and had like 8 straight games with less than 4 yards a carry, and 3 of his last 4 was less than 3. So this season starts with a 9-yard run from Javonte Williams, but then after that, he did next to nothing, had 8 carries, 23 yards. So after the 9-yard run, it's 7 for 14. So is he ever going to return to that same back he had been in 2021? And how much patience are the Broncos going to have? I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin they like, but he's more of a change of pace guy. And when he's in there, it kind of telegraphs things that he's probably going to get the ball because he's not a great pass protector. So they lost Audric Estime. He went on injured reserve with an ankle injury, so he's going to be out at least the next 4 games. So it'll be interesting to see what they do about the third running back spot, to see if they give undrafted rookie Blake Watson a chance. I mean, I think they ought to throw him out there and see what he can give them.
Chris, they used a lot of 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets on offense. I wouldn't imagine that they want to get in a situation where Bo has to drop back and pass as much as he did in that Seattle game. The Steelers obviously have TJ Watt on the other side, and heading into that week 1 game against the Falcons, Raheem Morris said, our intentions are for him not to be a game wrecker. Well, he wrecked it anyway. Do you foresee them maybe trying to go more heavy personnel groupings in this game with multiple tight ends or maybe a fullback in an effort to kind of help Chip and do things that other teams try to do to at least try to slow down TJ Watt on that side? Or do you think we'll continue to see just a heavy dosage of 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers out there?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they beef things up like you suggested. I mean, Michael Burton, the fullback, he started the year in the practice squad, was elevated for the first game, but he was added to the 53-man roster this week. So he's definitely going to get some work. And, Sean Payton has always liked to use multiple tight ends, and Nate Atkins they like as an additional blocker. So it might be interesting to see how much they throw him in there. But they also want to look to throw to their tight ends as well. And it also is worth noting that Devon Vele, who had 8 catches in his first game as a rookie, albeit he only had 39 yards, he's been out all week with a ribs injury. And again, we're recording this before the injury report comes out. So they might actually be down one of their key receivers from their opener.
Flipping over to the defensive side of the football, it's not often you see a couple of safeties early in the game. The way that worked out, I think one was a holding call, but I think overall that front provided good pressure. Boy, that Jonathan Cooper looks to be the real deal. I believe he was a former 7th-round draft pick. But as a whole, at least early in the game, I thought they did a good job of getting the pressure up front. So I would imagine that they're pretty happy with the way that front played, at least rushing the passer early in that game.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Jonathan Cooper. I mean, he told me last week that his goal this season is 20 sacks, and considering his career high last year was 8.5, it was kind of like, well, really? Are you serious? And then he comes out and gets 2 sacks in the first half. So he was on pace at one point for 64 this season. Now he's just on pace for 34, or I should say he was on pace for 68. Now he's just on pace for 34. But anyhow, the pressure was decent on the quarterback, and overall the defense played pretty well, but they were kicking themselves after the game due to a lull in the third quarter. I mean, they dominated the game in the first half, and then in the third quarter, Seattle kind of had its way running the ball. Then they also got a touchdown on the first play of the fourth quarter. So they had that lull, which proved decisive in the game. So the talk this week is the defense. They need to play more of a 60-minute game.
When you look at what they did coverage-wise, looked like a lot of man-type situations overall. They did have some kind of split coverages, and when you have a cornerback like Patrick Surtain, you can do that, try to lock down one side. I imagine he's going to be all over George Pickens this week here. But the thing is, when you get into a lot of man coverages, you have your back turned and you have a mobile quarterback. We're all expecting Justin Fields, obviously, to start this game and him probably take off with the football quite a bit. Will that be the onus on the defense? Is, hey, you got to make sure that it's okay to, in the situations where you play man, but you better be cognizant of Justin Fields taking off with the football.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned Pat Surtain and Pickens. Surtain followed DK Metcalf in the opener, and he said he likes that challenge. So we'll see if that continues. The other cornerback was not surprisingly picked on by Seattle. That was Riley Moss, second-year man, starting his first ever NFL game. And I talked to him this week, and he said he kind of initially was displeased with how he played. He watched the film and realizes he was going against some pretty good receivers and is trying to take a positive attitude. But Justin Fields could provide havoc for the Broncos. I personally think they would have rather faced Russell Wilson. I mean, they know Wilson's game, seen him for the last 2 years. They probably know his weaknesses and could get after him better with their pressure defense. But Fields is going to be harder to catch for them, obviously, than Wilson would have been.
Yeah, I saw Moss finish with 12 tackles, which told me he was getting targeted a lot for the first time out there. Chris, let me go back to offense. I just have one more question on the offensive line. How has Mike McGlinchey played at right tackle since coming over that big prize free agent a couple years back from San Francisco? Obviously, he'll see TJ Watt. They'll give him help, as you and Dave talked about, but just overall, how has McGlinchey looked?
I mean, he's been okay. In free agency, the tendency is to overpay. As you all know, he got 5 years, $87.5 million after in 5 years never making a Pro Bowl with San Francisco. He's been a good locker room guy, class act. His strength is probably more in the run game than in the passing game. I would say, last year he had maybe a slightly above average season, but he certainly isn't a Pro Bowl type of guy. But the priority last year was to beef up the offensive line, and they were desperate. And their first two moves were to hand out huge contracts to Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers. Powers, a similar, type guy, never has made a Pro Bowl, and might probably never will. But it's kind of interesting that Quinn Meinerz has become by far their best offensive lineman. He signed a massive contract extension over the offseason. I think Pro Football Focus had him last year as the second or third ranked guard in the NFL. And he's a homegrown guy. 2021 draft went in the third round.
Yeah, we remember him well. We were talking about Quinn Meinerz when Pittsburgh was looking at him, and they took Kendrick Green, and you guys got the better end of the deal on that one. Give me an underrated name on defense, someone that we, maybe the Steelers fan, the common fan won't know much about. I know Singleton, played every down last week, had a pick. What about Jaquan McMillan too? It seems like he's got kind of a hybrid dime backer type role, young corner, young DB. Give me an underrated name on this defense.
Yeah, he really emerged last season. Jaquan McMillan kind of came out of nowhere. He was a guy who was on the practice squad and got into one game in 2022. So he's definitely been a quote underrated guy, but he actually the AP All-Pro team had slot cornerback for the first time last year, and he actually got one vote from somebody last year. So maybe he's a little bit less unheralded. Brandon Jones would be another guy that maybe a lot of folks don't know about. He was off and on starter with Miami, and he was the safety brought in to replace Justin Simmons, who they released in a salary cap related move. And he's been pretty steady. And, along the defensive line, I mean, most of those guys probably are known. John Franklin Myers, was maybe under the radar to some, never made a Pro Bowl, but he was a big signing, or I should say they traded with the Jets for him. And Zach Allen on the defensive line, they gave him a big contract last year, and he had a nice opening game, played 97% of the snaps at defensive end, which you don't always see.
Yeah, big fan of Zach Allen. My last question for you, Chris, I'll let Dave finish things out after. What is a fair expectation for Denver? No playoffs since 2015. Sean Payton's second year, still feels like trying to rebuild and put the pieces together beyond the obvious of hoping that Bo Nix establishes himself as the future of the franchise. What is reasonable to hope for this team by year's end?
Yeah, I think most Broncos fans don't expect the team to have a winning season, and certainly not to make the playoffs. But you mentioned seeing Bo Nix having growth, but really it's momentum to the next season in all regards. I mean, the Broncos have now gone 8 straight seasons without making the playoffs, 7 losing seasons in a row, and it just seems to be the same old, same old. There hasn't been any stability. They brought in numerous coaches. I think they have to see that Sean Payton is the guy and he's got the pieces moving forward, and that it was the right coaching move to hire him, because he's pretty much the GM as well as the coach. He decides on the personnel, and they have to see that there's growth. Last year, I mean, they started out losing 70-20 to Miami. 3, the defense improved, but then when they were kind of in the playoff race, they got blasted 42-17 at Detroit, lost at home to a bad New England team. So the season ended on a sour note. So they need to show that that they're on an upward spiral.
In no way do you think Sean Payton will be on the hot seat this year, do you?
I don't think so, unless it's like 3-14 or something along those lines, and Bo Nix doesn't show promise. I mean, Bo Nix is Sean Payton's hand-picked quarterback, so much of the season rides on him, and him showing that even if he had his rough patches this year, that he can be that quarterback in the future.
I know as part of your paper's research, they're looking at what they might be expecting as far as Steeler fans coming in and trying to take over the stadium. Obviously, the Steelers, are known for a fan base that can do that very easily. They did that against Atlanta last week. What's kind of the sense that you've gotten a couple of days out from the game as far as what you're expecting for Steeler fans? I was in Denver. By the way, I was in Denver over the off season there. We really enjoyed our trip over there, but I did see quite a few Steeler fans running around with their merchandise, and this was in the spring there. But what are you kind of expecting as far as Steeler fans showing up in that game?
Well, we'll have to see what the price is that Broncos fans are willing to sell their tickets for. I mean, I was talking to Ryan Harris, who played briefly for the Steelers in 2016, and he was saying 2015 playoffs, the Steelers didn't take over the stadium in that game in Denver. But then I was talking to somebody else in 2005 when they played in the AFC Championship game. They kind of maybe took over the stadium then. We'll have to see. I mean, if Steeler fans are already going to be here, they've paid for their airline flight and their hotel. I mean, what difference does it make if they pay $150 for their ticket or $400? They're going to get a ticket. So we'll see as the prices go up if Broncos fans are willing to sell their tickets. But at least there's the lure for Broncos fans of seeing Bo Nix in his home debut. So that might keep some from selling their tickets to Steeler fans.
All right, Chris, time to put you on the spot. Steelers in Denver on Sunday. Mike Tomlin is 4-5 against the Broncos all time. He's 1-5 against Denver on the road. Mike Tomlin is 0-3 against Sean Payton for his career. Obviously, those three games were with Payton with the Saints. So this is a head coach that Mike Tomlin has yet to beat. For his career. Where do you stand on this game, and how about a score prediction, if you don't mind?
Wow, I hadn't thought of my exact prediction. I got to make one today, but I would say the Steelers win a tight one, maybe like 23-20. I think that Bo Nix, will be better playing at home, and but the Steelers pose a lot of problems. Of course, they're going to continue to pressure the young quarterback. I think they might run the ball a little bit better, the Broncos, than they did in week one. And, I think the defense is going to be reasonable. I mean, the Steelers didn't score, as you well know, a touchdown in the opener at Atlanta, but I think Steelers will just have too much for Denver. I mean, Mike Tomlin is a top-notch coach. I mean, Mike McDonald was in his coaching debut last week, and he got the better of Sean Payton, and now we got Tomlin going against Payton. So I think in the end, something like 23-20 Pittsburgh.
All right, tell people what they'll find when they go over to the Denver Gazette today from you, Chris.
Well, our other reporter here, Kyle Fredrickson, wrote about Justin Fields most likely playing and Russell Wilson not. I'm going to be writing a story on the defense probably today. I wrote a story that's still online from a day or two ago, just kind of about Bo Nix and the speed of the game, in which you touched upon. I talked to Josh Reynolds. He thought that the game was moving 1,000,000 miles an hour for Nix in the opener. Talked to Tom Jackson, the former Broncos linebacker and ESPN analysis, and he, thinks Bo Nix is going to pan out, but he sees, a lot of growing pains and wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh does a lot of what Seattle did in the opener with putting pressure on him, etc.
All right, Chris. Well, look, Alex and I, we've had you on already a couple of times in the last several months. We certainly have appreciated your time that you spent with us on this Friday morning, and we'll see what the schedule says moving forward past this season and all, and like to have you on again. But for Alex and myself, thank you for coming on the Terrible Podcast again.
Outstanding. I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Our special thanks to Chris Thomasson. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Chris Thomasson. That's TOMMASON. You can follow his work at the Denver Gazette. We had Chris on before. He's always a great guest, and so appreciate his time.
Absolutely, we do. To take time out on a Friday morning for any beat writer to come on means a lot to us, and that's why we always ask for those of you that listen on Twitter/X, if you get half a second to just tweet at him and thank him for his time. That certainly means a lot to those guys, and it lets them know that they're being heard and their time's important and those kind of things. So if you get a chance, I know a couple of you already do that every week, and we certainly do appreciate that. So just want to put that out there again. And we do appreciate Chris coming on, spending almost 30 minutes, about 25 minutes with us on this Friday morning.
Means a lot. So thank you again to Chris and all the listeners who shout out the beat guys to join us each week. All right, Dave, let's you and I preview this game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Denver Broncos. Pittsburgh 1-0, Denver 0-1 after losing a pretty tight game to Seattle 26-20 in week one. Kind of similar. Denver's offense struggled. Bo Nix making his first start. The defense, I thought, kind of kept them in it. Let's start, though, with that Denver offense. When you watch Bo Nix in that game against Seattle, what stuck out to you?
A lot of mistakes with him. There were kind of three notes that I have attached to him. First, he can make some of these throws. The back shoulder throw to Josh Reynolds on a third down on a 9-8-9 concept was in my opinion his best ball of the game. He did seem inaccurate though on several of his other throws. There were, as Chris Thomasson mentioned, a couple of drops that could have made his stat line look a little bit better, but he also made a lot of poor decisions with the football that resulted in a couple of picks for him as well. The other thing that sticks out with it is he is not going to be afraid to use his legs, and especially against a defensive front like the Steelers in this one. You've got to make sure. Look, you go from Kirk Cousins, one of the older quarterbacks and least mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, to a spry rookie who can take off with his feet. Now, Mike Tomlin praised him up about the way they put him on the move, changes launch points and all like that. I wasn't so enthralled with his throws on the move as I was the actual movement of him on the move. If that makes sense there. He is going to take off with the football a few times in this game. They might even have some designed runs in this game as well, too, to try to keep those edge rushers a little bit at bay there. But in totality, when you look at his first NFL game on the tape, it's probably to be as expected. There were a few positives mixed in with a lot of negatives. They didn't do him a great job of protection as the game wore on there. He's going to be up against this front for sure. But I would expect the Steelers to probably play a lot of zone in this because you want to kind of keep your face toward him. You probably want to disguise a few things. You might want to try to send a blitz after him to see how he picks that up. But the number one thing when it comes to Bo Nix is you just can't let him win with his legs, and especially on third down situations where he's maybe trying to scramble. Look, it was late in the game, ended up, obviously just making the score a little bit closer, but it was all effort by him on that touchdown, their only touchdown of the game, late in that game, scrambling and getting into the end zone. So a gritty player, one prone to make mistakes, and just let him throw you the football.
That was my takeaway. And when I do the scouting reports, it's myself, it's Josh Carney, Jonathan Heitritter. I do the schematic elements, so I'm looking a little less about individual play and performance, but Nix's mobility was certainly obvious on tape. That'll be something different Pittsburgh has to face. And I mentioned, I think on Monday's show, that Pittsburgh is at their best when they're facing less mobile quarterbacks, when they can really pin their ears back and rush freely and not worry about this guy breaking contain, escaping and scrambling. As we saw with Kirk Cousins, it'll be a little harder, more challenging against Bo Nix, who's not the most mobile quarterback, but can certainly run and has fresh young rookie legs. So that'll be, I think, one element to combat. But I think you certainly can pressure him, not only with just your front four, which will be stronger than Denver's offensive line that has struggled for years, but also with some pressure packages. Pittsburgh did not blitz Kirk Cousins last week, and that was intentional. The team said there should be some more blitzes this week because Denver really struggled with distributing and IDing and dealing with some of those more overload and blitz-heavy looks. I thought Nix was under some pretty constant pressure against Mike McDonald, that defense that is very Ravens-like and being aggressive at the line of scrimmage. So I would probably expect some more blitzing and a little more chaos looking for Bo Nix this weekend against Pittsburgh's defense.
Look, I can't imagine they're sitting around the planning coaching sessions here saying, you know what, let's drop back another 44 times against the Steelers here with Bo Nix. What do you have? 42 attempts. He was sacked twice against Seattle, and that was a fairly close game. For most of it as well too. Obviously the Denver defense had a couple of safeties in there, and boy, Seattle was a mess offensively to start this thing out. Now, I think the Denver defense did their part for the most part, but long story short, Denver's got to try to establish the run early in this one. They seem to try to attack the perimeters a little bit more early in this game, either via true runs or manufactured runs in the passing game. They ended up I counted 3 RPOs in this.
For Denver's offense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 2 bubble, number 3 in the flat, from what I saw on tape.
So not many. I would imagine they up the RPO game in this one, and they've got to try to run the football on early downs, and they can't get in situations with Bo Nix of the 3rd and long and expect them to make those back shoulder throws all game here. I would imagine Joey Porter going to spend most of his time on Cortland Sutton in this game to try to take him out. And as far as the passing game goes, I would imagine probably a lot of zone once again in this, because you want to keep your face forward to Bo Nix. And like you said, I would imagine some blitzes against, make him ID stuff, make him have to think, where's this stuff coming from? Do a lot of twisting stunts up front. But you just look at it on paper here. This game really sets up well for the Steelers front 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. I mean, Denver knows they have to run the ball better. They got really nothing from the running backs, as Chris talked about. McLaughlin and Williams combining for maybe like 50 yards and 3.5 yards per carry, something like that. And anytime a team is one-dimensional without an elite quarterback, you're in trouble. But when you have a rookie quarterback against this Pittsburgh Steelers front and their pass rush, you can't be throwing the ball, like you said, 40 times per game. They have to run the ball. Denver did use a lot of crack toss against Seattle. Atlanta had a bit of success doing that, so we'll see if that continues. I think Pittsburgh will have to really, their edge guys, outside linebackers, those cornerbacks and DBs will have to be ready for the perimeter run game, because I think Denver was leaning on that pretty heavily against Seattle. And they ran some, duo and man stuff up the middle, but I think Pittsburgh will have the advantage there of stuffing that. So I would look for Denver trying to get the ball on the perimeter to see if they can make some plays on the outside.
They 12 zone runs, 6 gap runs by them in this game. They might try to balance that out a little bit more this week.
Yeah, I mean, I know they ran crack toss like at least 3 times in the first half, so I don't know how that gets classified. I mean, I assume that's a man, scheme, but that was a pretty frequent part of their personality in the run game.
They use 11 personnel on 47 snaps in this game. They use 2 or more tight ends at least 12 times in this game. I would imagine they're going to go a little bit heavier in this game as well, too.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, they were probably in 11 late in the game. That may skew the numbers a little bit. I really want to see the matchup with Josh Reynolds and Dante Jackson. Jackson was really good in week 1, his Steelers debut. It was a good matchup against Mooney, kind of 2 small, speedy guys. Now you got Jackson on a bigger guy in Josh Reynolds. You saw the ball quite a bit last week. Sutton's going to be the number 1 target, but if he's going to be taken away by Joey Porter Jr., then I think Reynolds versus Jackson might be the next matchup to go to.
I think keys on the defense for the Steelers are quite obvious. Stop the run. Don't let Bo Nix kill you with his legs on scrambles.
Well said. That is, it's simple, but it is so true for a game like this. All right, let's go to Denver's defense. And yeah, I thought Denver's defense played really well. I mean, they gave up, technically 26 points, but there were a couple of chunk plays. I thought Chris summed it up well. Like, I was watching the first half of this game going, how did Seattle have a great running game against Denver? They ran for like $150. I was like, how did that happen? Because Denver was totally bottling it up in the first half. But as Chris said, third quarter, Walker with a 20-yard run. I think Geno Smith had a 34-yard scramble for a touchdown. I mean, they were getting some chunk plays in the second half. But overall, that Denver front's got some strength to it.
Yeah, they blew. You had the long scramble by Geno of, what was that, 40-something yards for a
34.
34 yards for a touchdown. You had a blown coverage on the Zach Charbonneau kind of wheel out where nobody was wide open. You don't get any more wide open than that there. So 2 huge play. And what do we say about those plays like that? It ended up in the end zone. The double explosive. Well, I guess it wasn't double in the Geno one, but it pretty damn near close to it, and all. But other than that, the play went well. I thought. Now there was that stat that I tossed to you earlier in the week there that where Kenneth Walker really had started and the Seattle offense really started to make their mark. Was on those gap concepts runs, which he gashed the Broncos for 64 yards on 10 carries, including a 23-yard touchdown run in the third quarter there. Steelers are obviously They might add more gap man stuff into this, but I mean, they're still predominantly going to be a zone team. But it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to try to exploit some of those gap runs that Seattle had the success with. But as Arthur Smith laid out, they're just going to try to grind them down in this one. You're going to obviously see a lot of 2, 3, 4 tight end sets, and I don't think they're going to overcorrect as far as the Steelers offense when it comes to gap and zone and man blocking type stuff. They're just going to try to keep running on them and pushing them around up front, and then let that have the totality do what they did to Atlanta. Because Pat Freiermuth said they knew they had them wore down in the second half on that Atlanta defense, and I suspect this does not set up for an exciting passing yardage game for either team, barring blown coverages. And once again, and look, as I mentioned to Chris there, defensively for the Broncos, they used a lot of man, and as you stated, a lot of middle of the field closed in this one. Obviously, we're going to see Surtain on Pickens. Now you can, and I think you and the guys properly described this in the film room as well too. You can have split coverages here. So, you can have, Surtain on one side, playing more of a man scheme, and you can do, you split field on the other side, more zone. I suspect that's what they'll do in this, because if they go full out man in this and they're not, Justin Fields can just as easily go 30-something yards like Geno Smith, if not more. And there, as like we talked about on Denver's offensive side of the football, you got to make sure you contain Bo Nix. That's nothing like trying to contain Justin Fields with his legs. So Justin, you got to go to Justin ahead of this and say, hey, if it's there, have at it, because Justin very well could be the leading rusher for the Steelers in this game, and I would not be surprised at all. I'm going to throw this out there. Okay. You could see Justin hit the century mark in this one.
I like it. I love the bold prediction. Yeah, I think he certainly could. If they're going to be man heavy Denver, and Pittsburgh can control the ball the way they control it against Atlanta, that's a ton of opportunities for Justin Fields. The occasional design run as well. Yeah, I mean, he could have a really good day with his legs, no question. I think when it comes to Pittsburgh's base run game, I'm with you. Gap schemes seem to be the most effective thing against Denver week one. And week one can lie, and you don't want to make too much from week one, and teams will adjust. Denver knows they struggled against gap schemes, so I'm betting they're working on that in practice this week. You do wish you had Say Maulu for this game, because he'd be a stronger puller than Spencer Anderson, but you can do. They had gotten a couple of big runs on a long pull, kind of traditional trap run, but even a short trap where they trap the 3-tech, and Pittsburgh has done that in the preseason. So I think some of those kind of short, quick traps with, say, Spencer Anderson taking the backside, or maybe the front side, I should say, 3-tech, and just kind of walling and ear holing him. You might see some of those kind of runs, but I do think the gap scheme is going to be more effective than zone and even kind of duo this week against Denver. Were you going to say something, Dave?
Yeah, I was going to say, what has been the MO for Arthur Smith for forever, for both the educated and non-educated fan? Oh, he just runs zone, both mid and outside. He's a zone guy. What better way than to correct to have oppositions get befuddled by your tendencies than to mix it up a little bit. Yeah, in other words, go to more gap and man, because it calls for it in this game, quite honestly. Yeah,
and Smith can run gap. I know you're not saying it, but there's a misnomer that he's only a zone guy. He's a zone base guy, but he's run gap. I mean, he's run a variety of concepts.
Right. So I think it would be criminal for us not to talk about gap man coming out of this game, because I think there's hay to be made. Their linebacker, their second level linebackers aren't all that either. So if you can catch those guys up in the wash and they can get out of gaps and all like that as well too. So yeah, I would definitely mix it up in this one. I'd make those inside linebackers earn their keep for Denver this week.
Yeah, it's Singleton is the every down guy, and it's kind of a committee from there. And McMillan, as we talked about with Chris, kind of being used as a kind of quasi linebacker, slot corner type of role. Yeah, and coverage, as you said, the run some split coverages. So if you go 3-by-1, they're going to often lock the backside, and that'll be Surtain on Pickens. If Pickens is your backside guy, and then probably run some sort of zone or match coverage to the trip side. So can you get more 2-by-2, maybe discourage some of
Balance
that?
it.
Or 3-by-1 and just kind of know what you're going to see there. So we'll see how Pittsburgh attacks that. But yeah, it's interesting. We're in a too high world right now. And that's one reason why passing yardages are down in the NFL right now, because we're seeing more and more too high. But it felt like Denver was in single high a lot last week. I don't know if that's a game plan specific thing or a personality thing or what. But if they are going to continue to run more single high, then it's probably going to be more outside vertical type stuff that Fields will attack.
And you only got 1 week of tape really to go off of here, but if I were them, I would consider maybe maybe more cover 3 in this. And if that I would try to invite Justin Fields to throw at Pickens more, to be quite honest.
You would?
Yeah, I would invite it because I trust my guy over there in Surtain.
Okay.
And the safety help that that's what I would do. I would invite more because if they go man, I think if they go more man with Surtain on Pickens, you're probably not going to see a lot of targets out that side. And I want my best player opportunity to make plays. And then on top of it, like I said, you want your defense facing Justin Fields as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think you'll see a lot of cover 3 makes sense to play more zone, but that's single high personality. Either way, that middle of the field is still closed and the ball is going to go on the outside. I think Fields will throw to Pickens regardless because for this passing game to work, they kind of need Pickens to make plays. It's going to be hard.
Just be careful.
Sure, 100%. But I think, regardless of what Denver's plan is, Pittsburgh is going to want to find ways to get Pickens to the football because their game really does not work unless he's producing. And if he's drawing attention, then it'll free up the other guys and Jefferson and hopefully get more than 2 catches and 8 yards from the other receivers this week. You need a little more balance there, obviously. But yeah, I think we'll see Pittsburgh creatively use some stacks and bunches to try to maybe shake Surtain a little bit, at least create some traffic for him to deal with if they're going to really truly travel Surtain on Pickens, which they almost certainly will. I think that Denver defense, they're aggressive. They swarm. They present some good pressure looks. Don't go empty. They're going to really attack empty sets. They were attacking that out of Seattle's empty and rushing 6 and really kind of putting the pressure on. I would not do that if I'm Pittsburgh. But I thought Denver, they ran to the ball well. They attacked the RPO game. Their DBs tackled well in space. And there's those edge guys. I mean, Cooper, as you talked about, like he had a good game. Like they collapsed the pocket. They got a sack on the first play of the game for Seattle's offense. Denver's defense did. So I don't want to underestimate this Denver defense. There's some talent. Like they're well coached. They're aggressive. They can make some plays.
They had that, and I think Seattle had a penalty in there as well too early on. But Seattle was a mess early offensively. The Denver defense had a little bit of a blender in the first half of that game.
And 2 safeties in the first half. That is the first time since 2017 any defense in the NFL has recorded 2 safeties. Only the second time in Denver history, 1983. The other, it's never happened in Pittsburgh before. So one was the penalty, but still, what I should have checked were those punts. How did the ball keep getting on the 1 yard line in Seattle? Was it punts? Was it penalties? I know on the one safety that was Zach Allen bursting through, they one gap well and he shot the gap and took down the running back. But they have a good punter out there in Denver. I should have checked that.
I didn't look at that ahead of this. I can look.
Riley Dixon averaged about 49 yards per punt. He had 8 punts, which is far too many punts, obviously, but 4 inside the 20.
Wait, no, I'm looking at Dixon, 0 touchbacks. Oh, no, I'm looking at the wrong. I'm looking at
he had
Dixon.
1 touchback.
There was Dixon and Dixon in this one.
Michael Dixon, the other Seattle's punter. They're great.
1 touchback, 4 inside the 20. Yeah, for Dixon.
Okay. It looks like the ball was on the 1. There was an interception that Nix threw that was caught at the 1, picked off at the 1. That set up the first safety. The second safety was a 65-yard punt by Dixon down at the 1. And then Denver got the safety the next play. There was also one other time Seattle was really far backed up. But I think that looks like a penalty influenced that. So yeah, Dixon can be a threat for them.
Seattle had just 3 explosive plays in this game. The scramble that we talked about for Geno Smith, 34 yards for a touchdown. Boy,
they're all touchdowns.
Yeah, they're all touchdowns. Yeah, all three explosive play touchdowns. Boy, what a sight that would be to see Justin Fields take off for one and still an explosive play touchdown. They had the 34-yard scramble by Smith. They had the blown coverage to Charbonnet down the right side for a touchdown for 30 yards. And then the Kenneth Walker gap run up the middle for 23 yards. But other than that, the play went okay for him, I guess, defensively.
Yeah, you only gave up 3 explosive plays, which you normally would probably take, but they were all touchdowns, and so that was the deal breaker in that one. But yeah,
kind of reminds you of the Detroit game a couple of years ago against the Steelers, where they had the explosive plays and all of them ended up in touchdowns.
Was that the tie?
I think so. Yeah,
Mason game. Yeah, I remember that game being bonkers, insane, and totally drunk. So yeah, this will be a tight game. I think you said it well. This is going to be similar to Atlanta. It's going to be pretty messy, pretty ugly, pretty physical, not a ton of points.
Just don't turn the football over.
Yeah, Pittsburgh 14-2 since 2022 when they don't turn the ball over, and 6-13 when they do give the ball away once, regardless of turnover differential. So it is.
And Bo Nix is going to make some mistakes, so let him make them, and take advantage of them.
Yeah, I think that is true. Especially Pittsburgh should have success stopping the run. Like if they don't have success stopping the run, there's a problem. I mean, they match up well on paper. And if you're in that situation and putting a lot of pressure and strain and stress on Nix, I mean, he may scramble occasionally, but you drop him back enough times, there's going to be some bad outcomes there. So I like where Pittsburgh is at defensively. Can they just make it play too offensively? Let's get the ball in the end zone. Let's get the ball in the red zone and punch the ball in. You got to finish some of these drives. You can't kick 6 field goals again. I know the altitude of the air may help a little bit on Boswell's lift, but you got to put the ball in the end zone one time this weekend.
Yeah, let Boswell just kick extra points this week.
Yeah, let's try some shorter kicks for him. So good discussion. I think that we have a good grasp on what Denver is and is not, and that's all I got on the Broncos.
That's all I got too.
All right, Dave, before we make our picks for this game between Pittsburgh and Denver, and before we also go to read your emails, let's make our other picks for week 2. We're both 1-0 on the week, taking Buffalo, who blew out Miami last night. Unfortunately, very scary situation with Tua. Don't know his status going forward, but wish him all the best.
Yeah, that was ended up being obviously the storyline to come out of that one. And that, as expected, is all over Sports Talk TV, and I imagine Sports Talk Radio with him is what does the future hold? And boy, what a crippling loss for the Dolphins, because at a minimum you got to think, how long is he going to be sidelined if he ever plays again?
Yeah, at least a couple weeks. I think he missed 2 games after that last scary concussion, so probably at least that, if not longer.
All right, we both had the Bills plus 2.5 Thursday night. We both get the W there. Let's go to the Raiders at the Ravens. The Ravens 8-point home favorites in this one.
Yeah, easy pick here. Give me the Ravens. Almost said Raiders. Give me the Ravens all the way.
I'm with you. Give me the Ravens to cover that at home against the Raiders. The 49ers on the road against the Vikings. 49ers 5-point road favorites.
Darnold did well last week. Credit to him, but the Niners did well without McCaffrey. I'll go San Francisco.
I'll go San Francisco with you. The Saints on the road against the Cowboys. The Cowboys 6-point home favorites.
Yeah, Dallas looked really strong. I mean, the Saints had a great time against Carolina, but Dallas is no Carolina. I'll go Cowboys.
I'm going to have to stick with you. Lay the 6 points. Carolina at home against the Steelers' next opponent, the Chargers, who, by the way, the Chargers are going to stay in Charlotte to prepare for the Steelers at Pittsburgh in week 3. The Chargers are 5-point road favorites over the Panthers. The Panthers are a mess.
The Chargers are apparently going to practice at the Charlotte Football Stadium. Can we get Highsmith and Ogunjobi to get some intel? Maybe they know somebody, little janitor or something at that stadium. They'll get some intel on the Chargers.
I'm not touching that.
Yeah, what's the line?
5. Chargers by 5.
Yeah, I mean the Panthers, they can't be less competitive than last week, but give me the Chargers.
Give me the Chargers.
And they lost Derek Brown too, and they can't stop the run. It's gonna be a mess.
I'll take the Chargers late of 5 points. Jets on the road against the Titans. The Jets are favored by 3.5 in this one on the road.
I'll take the Jets. I think one weekend, Aaron Rodgers, it barely possessed the ball last week. The Jets did. The Titans, they didn't score a touchdown, and they blew that game to Chicago. So give me the Jets.
I have no choice but to go with you on this. It's very boring. Minus 3.5. I'll take the Jets. The Colts on the road against the Packers. Colts laying 2.5 at Lambeau Field because they'll be without Jordan Love.
It's Malik Willis starting for them in this one. They'll see how that goes. Yeah, I got to go with the Colts, Dave.
I got to go with the Colts as well, too. Lay to 2.5. We're going to get some surprises here. There's no way we're going to be perfect on all these. The Buccaneers on the road against the Lions. Lions laying 7.5 points against Tampa Bay.
Tampa Baker looked really good. They can run the ball like Bucky Irvin. Give me at least Tampa Bay to cover.
All right, I'll be different here.
Right.
I'll lay the 7.5 with the Lions at home. The Patriots hosting the Seahawks. The Seahawks 3.5 point road favorites.
You know what? Give me New England to cover. That offense is still very sketchy, but that defense is strong. Seattle having to travel. Give me New England to cover.
I'll take Seattle on this one. I'll lay the 3.5 on the road. Giants on the road against the Commanders. The Commanders are 1.5 point home favorites against Daniel Jones and company.
Malik Neighbors just got cleared for the Giants, but I'll take Washington. Daniels will make some more plays with his legs, and he's the better quarterback right now than Daniel Jones.
I'll take the Washington Commanders to lay that 1.5 as well. The Browns.
That's all you got to say. It's laughing emoji.
I went through a little bit of that Deshaun Watson tape and all. What a mess they got over there. They put like 5 or 6 guys on IR this past week. Jaguars laying 3 points at home to the Browns. I apologize for that's very unprofessional for me to
uphold our standard of professionalism.
I know. I'm sure our listeners are irate with me, my lack of professionalism, but you'll never attach professionalism, the term professionalism to me. I can't even say it. So
that's right.
Jaguars laying 3 at home to the Browns.
And another lawsuit for Deshaun Watson, which is just compounding everything. And listen, I know some Browns fans, they are ready to just quit on Deshaun Watson. They just want him gone. So how's that trade working out for you? I'll say, though, that they find a way to dig deep and at least cover this game. I'll take the Browns in this one, surprisingly.
All right, I'll take the Jaguars late at 3 points. How about the Rams on the road against the Cardinals? The Cardinals are laying 1 against a beat-up Rams team. Cardinals favored by 1. Is this they're trying to I smell something fishy going on, even though the Rams are beat up here.
I was going to say, use your Dave Bryan phrase, if I smell a rat here. I know that offensive line is just a total mess for the Rams right now. Marvin Harrison looked kind of weird in his opener. It's just one game, but there's a lot of questions about that. I'm going to go with the Rams.
I'll take the cheese here for some reason. I don't know why. I don't have a good reason other than to go against the grain here. I'll take the Cardinals to win outright and cover the 1. Bengals on the road against the Chiefs. Boy, the Bengals could start 0-2. And what's it's that time of year where we're going to see the teams that start 0-2 and how many of them, percentage of them make the playoffs, yada, yada. Chiefs in jeopardy of falling to 0-2. I mean, the Bengals in jeopardy of falling 0-2. Well, both teams are. No, wait. The Chiefs beat the Ravens in week 1. Chiefs laying 6 at home against the Bengals, who
it looks like
they're probably not going to have T. Higgins, are they?
Yeah, I just saw a report. It looks like he's not going to go. I think it was Schefter saying it looks like a second straight week without T. Higgins, who is telling fans he's not faking his injury, which I believe him, but it's crazy. It's kind of gotten to that point of the conversation there. Yeah, I think Rich Eisen said since 2021, the 17-game season, only 9.5% of teams that have started 0-2 have made the playoffs, the Texans being one of them last year. Man, it's just tough against the Chiefs. I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one, Dave.
I'm going to take I think the Chiefs win this, but I think the Bengals cover. I think it's a field goal game. Give me the Bengals +6. Bears on the road against the Texans. The Texans laying 6.5 points against the Bears.
Yeah, I'm going to go Houston, Dave.
I'll go Houston lay to 6.5 with you. And the Monday night game, the Eagles hosting the Falcons. The Eagles are 6.5-point home favorites against the Battle of the Birds.
I'll take the Falcons to cover. I think they're going to figure things out in week 2, knock some of that rust off. They'll have a better plan for Cousins out of pistol, whatever they're going to run. Eagles can be a little frenetic. So Eagles probably win, but Falcons cover.
I'll take the Eagles to cover that 6.5 points. And that brings us back to the Steelers versus the Broncos. Steelers on the road, laying 2.5 in this one. What say you?
Yeah, I think we kind of laid out how I expect this game to go. It's going to be pretty similar to Atlanta. A lot of rock'em sock'em robots, 2 talented defenses, 2 teams that need to run the football. But I think Pittsburgh's, again, run defense will be the strength of this team, of this game, put Bo Nix in some uncomfortable situations. This offense will be able to finish a couple drives they couldn't, but it's going to be a tight, kind of weird just game for Pittsburgh on the road back-to-back weeks. I got Pittsburgh winning this one, but by a little funky score here, 20-18 over the Broncos.
That's funny. I got it one different than you. I had the Steelers winning this. I think at the end of it, the Denver scores a touchdown, maybe gets a 2-pointer or something to make this thing interesting. I have this as a Steelers win, but by 1 point. 20-19.
Oh, we both had like this weird like Denver score going on. Yeah, because I had the 2 safeties last week, and who knows what'll happen. So okay, I thought you were going to go 20-17, but I love 20-19.
I look, on paper, everything points to a Steelers win. I don't think we disagree there. I think just it's going to have a lot of ugliness to it. Overall, going to be a grind. Both teams going to try to grind it out. That kind of thing there, but. I obviously, we both have the Steelers winning this and going to 2-0, and we both have the Broncos covering at home here. Okay.
Well, let me just ask you this quickly, because we're doing a lot of hand holding. If Pittsburgh were to lose this game, how do they lose this game? If I say, Dave, we're coming out Monday, we're talking about Steelers loss, fill in the blanks of what happened.
Turnovers in your own end, setting up short field situations and multiple Denver field goals. And then the Steelers just ineffectively, when they get down, once again, coming away with 1 or 0 touchdowns.
I will say that, but I'll add on that they could not contain Bo Nix, and his legs were a big factor in this game in some key moments.
I agree. That feels like if they lose this game, that's what we're going to be talking about. Turnovers, Bo Nix running, the Steelers not good in the red zone.
Yep, exactly. All right, fair enough, Dave. Let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. How are we looking on time, brother Alex?
We are about an hour and a half-ish in, so maybe hit a couple of the key emails and get out of here.
All right, Andrew Gallus, I know you guys have the Terrible Takes podcast going on, but I would love to hear a 10 to 20-minute podcast on game day from you two. I'm sure Sundays are pretty crazy, but I'm always wanting just a smidge more of pregame analysis after the inactives are released, elevations are announced, etc. Go Steelers, deck the Broncos. He's doing the old Myron Cope thing. Deck the Broncos, they're just Yonkos, as the great Myron Cope once sung. The Breck boys will be in Denver rooting on the black and gold after a core member win in Atlanta last week. Andrew, it's crazy on Sundays. We're all going different directions. It's next to impossible to do anything pregame to get it up there in time for people to listen to.
And there really wouldn't be a lot more to say unless there was some sort of big inactive news or some other pregame story. There isn't going to be a substantially different commentary. But yeah, the way the NFL has worked, how many pregame shows are there now? Like 27 pregame shows that we're trying to track down information of. So we're stretched pretty thin. I mean, our day does not start at kickoff. We are starting pretty early in the morning with news and pregame commentary. And these shows love dropping some big bombshell story like Ayuk last week with Jay Glazer on the Sunday show. So our hands are pretty full before kickoff.
All right, Brett Nile back in the email machine. I have a couple of questions about minutia around Logan Lee decision. I found it odd that they chose to put him on IR list on Saturday. My question is why? On its face, it looks like a move to save money, or maybe he didn't respond to treatment and they're hoping to get him back earlier. So here's my question. When you put a player on IR like that at the end of the week, is it just the game that determines their split salary status, or do they get paid regular pay for the practices during the week? Number two, I believe the minimum D-line I believe with the minimum D-line stay, he would be eligible to come back week 5. My question is can you come back Monday of week 5, or does it have to be the calendar weeks, in which case he's not eligible till Saturday of week 5? That's a weird question. Is there any penalty for having open roster spot for game week? Number one, they had already used their 2 pre-week 1 moves to IR for designated to returns, so it made sense to do Logan Lee once you were by the weekend of week 1. They weren't in a hurry to shuffle the roster. They also ended up only having a 52-man active roster for week 1 because of the elevation. They wanted to leave that roster spot open. That's why they did it when they did it when it came to Logan Lee. This was not a salary move per se. This was him moving to IR because they'd already sent 2 guys to IR designated to return before week 1 to hit their limit there. This was not a salary dump or anything. The other thing is, he says, can he come back Monday, week 5? The official work calendar of the NFL starts on Tuesday, so I don't think he could be moved technically back to the active roster until that Tuesday of week 5. However, the Steelers normally wait until like the Saturday anyway to make those kind of moves. So I hope that answers that. So technically, I don't think he's eligible to come back off of IR until Tuesday of week 5. Is that the way you're interpreting things, Alex?
Yeah, it's almost a baseball spin. He said DL, which I think he's meaning IR.
Right.
Going to injured reserve there, and it's not based off of like baseball where it's literal days. It's off of the week calendar. So
Right.
it's, even if you're placed on a IR on a Saturday, you don't have to wait till that Saturday to officially come back. It's just number of actual work weeks. So you could come back once the new week begins. So yeah, it's that's how the NFL gauges it, not as opposed to a literal say 10-day IL that exists in baseball.
All right. As far as the split salary goes, no. As long as he's on IR with his specific contract, he gets split salary pay for as long as he's technically on the reserve injured list. So if he comes back from IR in week 5, he'll go back to his his regular base salary. But no, this wasn't done to save money or anything, or salary cap space. He says, is there any penalty for having an open roster spot on game week from a salary cap perspective? No. In fact, you save a tiny bit of salary cap space because you're not paying that full salary of a guy like Logan Lee. You're paying a split salary for him against the cap that week.
Yeah, it's interesting to see teams, manipulate rosters. And I thought Ross Van Trone was on the Christian Kuntz podcast and told a couple stories about his days in New England, getting yo-yoed, all those times being cut and brought back. And the one time they cut him right before they were traveling, when Van Trone thought he was going to go up with the team, and Belichick says, we're going to cut you, bring you back on Monday. Just stay in your house tonight. Don't let people see you walking around, because you're not technically supposed to be cut until tomorrow. Kind of a crazy story there. So just, fun with roster rules.
Bill Ewan writes in, man, my voice is horrible this morning. It's usually horrible anyway, I guess. I know you let it play out, but I would love to hear your thought. I know you said let it play out, but I would love to hear your thoughts. If we saw nothing else from Fields, he says, I think he has earned a new contract. If he doesn't take another snap, it would be a Jordan Love contract at best, maybe a backup contract. He has shown enough to be part of the future. The future might be backing up a rookie or placeholder for a rookie, but that is the floor. He could also continue to develop and be the quarterback for a decade. I'm just saying he has shown enough to be part of the future. Once again, we were asked this last week. I need to see more where I'm, and look, they're not going to do anything during the season with him anyway, but I need to see more before I'm in the position where I'm saying I'm paying this guy. Look, they just paid Mitch Trubisky on a contract of what was his average yearly value, like $6 or $7 million a year. I mean, is Fields probably worth that if he doesn't play another down for the Steelers? Probably, but I'm not rushing out and breaking precedent to get him signed right now. We need to see more out of him in a Steelers uniform. I guess Bill's saying is what is his floor earnings amount right now, and I would venture to say $7 million, maybe at max.
Yeah, as a floor, probably. I mean, quarterback prices have gone up. I know there wasn't much interest in Fields, from a trade standpoint. So I don't know how the league's going to think about him. I mean, we have time. That's my whole thought process in terms of who do you sign, who's your quarterback of the future. The reason why Pittsburgh did not, do anything with any of these quarterbacks was to let the season play out fully. And once the season ends, you can have, full evaluation, a whole season's worth of knowledge about these guys and how their play went, how the season went. You make a decision from there on the other side. So yeah, you could say that right now. It looks like there's something there with Fields, but maybe it all changes next week. Maybe he's 10 times better and we're talking big money. We're talking starter level contract. Maybe he's terrible and we're talking about, does this guy have a future at quarterback in the NFL as a starter? So I'm going to let the season play out. I'm not going to go, back and forth each week. Is he worth it? Is he not worth it? Is it Wilson? Is it Fields? We'll have plenty of time to discuss and ponder those things after the season ends.
All right. Being as how Bill does not want us to answer it like that, let's at least give him this. If based on what you saw in week one right now, if Fields, and you had to make a decision and Fields did not play the rest of the season, would you sign him to an average yearly value, let's say a 2 or 3 year deal at $8 million or more?
If I had to make a decision right now,
right?
Yes, I would.
I think I would as well too. Not seeing anything. Look, his legs are worth that. It's tough, but yeah. If I didn't see another snap right now, do I think he's worth at least what they gave to Mitch Trubisky a couple of years ago? I think that's a better way to frame it. And my answer would be yes.
Mine too, because at that point, if you did want to look at another quarterback option, I guess you're not completely closed off from doing that, although it'd be a little trickier at that value. But yeah, I mean, again, we're both obviously having some hesitation in our voice, and it's a moot question right now, but there's obviously something. I mean, we all know there's something there with this game. There's certainly upside and potential, and it's probably worth exploring that based on where things stand today. But again, let the season play out. Let's see where things end, and we'll have plenty of time to discuss all that come January and February.
One more quick one from Ross here. Did you notice the cheap shot Matthew Judon laid on George Pickens on the screenplay to Jaylen Warren on the left side? Brutal late hit that I haven't seen talked about that should be FedEx envelope for Judon. It was the second quarter between 5 to 6 minutes left. A part of me feels like we are lucky to have a GP healthy after that. Do you remember that?
Second quarter, about 5 to 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
I don't recall seeing it, but I'm assuming it was pretty bad if he's that adamant about it. I'm trying to pull it up here quickly, but I'm not doing a great job probably.
I got both my players have Denver tape on them right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm able to find it. Hold on. Maybe
second quarter, 5 to 6 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find exactly where it's at. I'm not seeing the play. I'm sure it exists. I'm just not seeing it right now. So I will have to. Against Pickens, he said?
He says, yeah. It was on the Jaylen Warren screenplay to the left side, he writes.
Oh, okay. I think I just passed it. Oh, I see it. Oh, I just saw. Yeah, he did. Ooh, that I totally missed that. That was a little shot to the ribs there from Judon and knocked Pickens over downfield. So that's probably gonna be worthy of a fine for sure.
All right, Ross. Well, here's the thing. Saturday at 4 Eastern time is when officially that list of fines go out. So, and we will be reporting. Allie, you might want to trim that one out and have it ready for Saturday.
I'm going to have a copy of that. I'm listening to a clip here, Dave.
Okay.
I want to get your thoughts on it.
Ross, if he ends up getting fined, we will. Alex, make sure we shout out Ross on the Monday show here because he will have saved us a lot of time.
Yes, because I would have been scrambling to try to figure out when the heck that play happened. Thank you, Ross.
So
send it to you a second.
Anyway, we got to start wrapping this up here. Anything else, Alex? Ready for Sunday?
Ready for Sunday? Yeah, we'll come back for Monday's show and recap things and hopefully talk about a Steelers win.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions. Get yourself a username and a password. And then once you pay for it, hit the login button. Use that username and password to take advantage of the ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com ad-free portion of the site. A lot of good stuff coming up. Great film breakdowns by Alex and the rest of the guys, offense and defense, to get you ready for the game. Hope you look at that. We'll have more content, obviously, coming throughout the weekend up until game time and beyond. So, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.